Okay, so we know these are normally referred as the traditional advanced control strategies like time delay compensator, cascade control, speed range control, which I have discussed already. The others are selective control, override control, valve position control, or variable structure control. All this I will discuss after completing the discussion of feed-forward and ratio control. So what I will do today is I will start with the feed-forward and ratio control. And once I complete this feed-forward and ratio control, then I will discuss also the rest of the part that is the selective control, override control, valve position control, and the variable structure control. So let us start with the feed-forward and ratio control. Before starting that feed-forward and ratio control, let us see what are the advantages of a feedback control and the disadvantages of feedback control, so that instead of feedback control, we have to use the feed-forward control. Here, basically, we have to define the problem first before learning that particular technique. One of the major advantages of the feedback control is that if you put a controller in a feedback control system, the controller will always take action if there is a deviation of the variable from the set point. Whether you measure the disturbance or if the disturbance is also unmeasured, irrespective of that, the corrective action will be taken by the controller. Secondly, you do not require any model of the process to design a feedback controller. Normally, in a process, I put a feedback controller without understanding anything about the process. I put a feedback controller. Only thing I have to ensure that the gain of the process and the feedback controller gain, there should be in the same direction. That means that if I multiply both these two, then should be positive. Which means you require minimal knowledge about the process to be controlled. So a mathematical model of the process is not required for designing a feedback controller. And third one is the PID controller is very versatile and robust. If the process condition changes, you retune the controller and work it. In most of the cases, we work around a design steady state values. So if I design the PID controller around the design steady state values, most of the situations we do not have to retune the controller. So what are if these are the advantages, then what are the disadvantages then? The first disadvantage is in the feedback control that it will never give a perfect control. So let us see what are the disadvantages. It will never give a perfect control because feedback controller will take action when there is a deviation from the set point. When there is a deviation of the measured variable from the set point, then only the feedback controller will take action, which means all the disturbances are already affected the process. That's why the measured variable is moved away from the set point, which means theoretically perfect control is not possible. Second, feedback control does not provide any predictive control action to compensate for the effects of known or measurable disturbances. Obviously, if we use a PID controller and if I use the derivative actions give some kind of anticipatory action, because the derivative term reflects the anticipatory term, but that is very, very limited. Third is, it may not be satisfactory for the process with large time constant or long time delays. We know already for long time delays, we have to design a Smith predictor for that. Simple PID controller, simple feedback control loop is not sufficient to control that. Also, we have seen also in a cascade control strategy, we have seen if there is a disturbances in the manipulated variable, then feedback control will not be able to control the process. So the disturbances and the long time delays cannot be taken care of by the conventional feedback control architecture. Another point has to be taken into account is that if there is an output disturbances, which normally feedback controller can take care of, but provided the amount of disturbances and the frequency of disturbances are low. But in a situation where the disturbance response time to the process and the manipulated variable response times to the process are different. Like disturbance response time to the process is very fast compared to the manipulated variable response time to the process, then in that case, feedback control system will not be able to handle the disturbances, because what will happen is whatever corrective actions will be taken by the controller, because of the some disturbances occurred in the disturbance due to the disturbance variable, will be negated again, because the disturbance variable is effect of the disturbance variable is more pronounced than the effect of the manipulated variable. So in this kind of situations, we have to go for a feed-forward control. Fourth point is some situations the control variable cannot be measured online, and consequently a feedback controller is not feasible. So to take care of these disadvantages of the feedback control, we have to go for a feed-forward control. So in the basic concept of the feed-forward control is that we have to measure the disturbances. We have to measure the disturbance, and then based on the disturbance, we have to design a control. We have to design a controller, and that controller will manipulate the variable over here. Just a minute. Okay, sorry for the interruption. So if we take this example over here, if you take the example of the boiler drum level control, in this case, if you see the level is normally controlled over here by manipulating the feed water over here. But the major problem in this is the demand for the steam. The major problem in this case is the demand for the steam. Normally, the steam produced in this boiler is sent to the different downstream process units for heating purposes. Now, that demand for the steam will change depending on the amount of fluid or amount of liquid we are heating. So since this steam demand is normally changes, which is a disturbance variable to this feedback control loop, then this level controller will not give you a satisfactory performance, control performance. So what will happen is rapid disturbance changes can occur as a result of steam demand made by the downstream processing units. And the control system tends to be quite sensitive to rapid changes in the disturbance variables, steam flow rate, as a result of the small liquid capacity of the boiler drum. What will happen? What will happen if the steam demand increases? If the steam flow increases, what will happen to the level? Can anybody answer? what will happen to the level?
Decrease. Decrease, sir. It will decrease.
It will
Reduce. Lower.
the level will decrease.
Fall. Yes.
Actually, in actual process, if the steam demand increases, you will find that initially the level will increase. Initially, the level will increase because the level transmitter will show that there is an increase in level. And after some time, you will find the level decreases. Can you tell me why it's so? Why it happens? Although theoretically we can easily say that if the steam demand increases, obviously level should fall. But in actual process, if the steam demand increases, initially the level will increase and then it will fall. Can you tell me why it will happen?
Sir, because of the entrailed vapor bubbles, like that decreases. So initially it should decrease the volume.
No, it will no. What will
Sir,
happen
it will be because
yes.
sir,
Anybody
it will be
else?
because like it will take some time to like boil that water
No,
that is
it
coming
is
inside.
not like that. Okay, let me explain. So if the steam demand increases, what will happen? This pressure over here immediately will fall, right? If the pressure over here will fall, then the more bubbles will generate over here in the boiler, right? More bubbles will generate. So that means this level, so more bubbles generate here in this portion. So what will happen is that this level will expand. So this volume will expand immediately. This volume will expand immediately. So the level transmitter will see that the volume expanded. So level transmitter will see that the level have increased. Okay, the level has increased. But after some time, as the vapor produced over here will disengage over here, the pressure restored, and then level will fall, and then the level will fall. Okay. So this normally will happen in a boiler drum. That's why the controlling of the level of a boiler drum is not a trivial problem because of this inverse response occurring over here. So this is basically called the inverse response. So initial response in the opposite direction to the final or steady state direction of the process, right? The inverse response normally happens if I look at the transfer function of a process. The inverse response normally happens if you have a right-hand plane 0 in the transfer function. If you have a right-hand plane 0 in the transfer function, so it will be like it will happen like this, right? So initially it is in this opposite directions to the final directions over here. So if you have a right-hand plane 0, then you will have an inverse response like this. You have a kink like this. And number of right-hand plane 0 will produce those many numbers of kinks. Like see, if you have a 2 right-hand plane 0, then it will be kink like this. This will be another kink, then it will be moved like this. Okay, so there are so theoretically, looking at the looking at the transfer function and the number of right-hand plane 0, you can easily identify whether the process has an inverse response or not. And obviously, if you have an inverse response, then controlling that process is difficult compared to the simple feedback control. Okay, so let us now go to the feed-forward control. So in case of a feed-forward control, in this case, what we can do is, instead of measuring the level, we measure the disturbance. So we measure the steam flow rate, and as the steam flow rate changes, we also change the feed water. In this case, theoretically, this will give you a perfect control of the level. Theoretically, this will give a perfect control of the level, because immediately when the steam changes, immediately take a corrective action. So if the steam flow increases, you increases the feed water flow. So if you increases the feed water flow, what will happen is the bubble generation over here will stop, because the cold feed water is coming to the system and the level will remain same. Okay. But the problem over here is this designing this feed-forward controller. This feed-forward controllers requires the process model. It cannot be a conventional PID controller. The feed-forward controller cannot be a conventional PID controller. It requires the knowledge of the process model. Normally, in a process, there are many disturbances. Some of the disturbances we can measure. So if we can measure the disturbances, then we can go for a feed-forward control. But there are other disturbances which we cannot measure. So in that case, for unmeasured disturbances, we have to have a feedback control. So normally in actual practice, we use feed-forward controller with feedback trimming. We use feed-forward controller with feedback trimming. So in this case, we have the normal feedback control. Now this feedback controller output, the level controller output, is further augmented by the feed-forward controller output over here. The feed-forward controller takes the measurement of the disturbance over here. In this case, if you look at this system over here, you have got two disturbances. One disturbance is the steam flow. Another disturbance is the feed water temperature also. Another disturbance is the feed water temperature also. The third disturbances, which are all unmeasured disturbances, which are basically the scaling or the reduction of the heat transfer area. The scaling of the tubes, boiler tubes, or the reduction of the heat transfer area. So in this strategy, feed-forward control is used to reduce the effects of the measurable disturbances, while the feedback trim compensates for the inaccuracies in the process model, measurement error, and the unmeasured disturbances. So in actual process, we always use the feed-forward feedback control strategies. Now let us now derive the feed-forward controller. In a feed-forward controller, the difference between a feedback controller and feed-forward controller is, in a feedback controller, we measure the output variable, that is the control objective, and so that measurement signal we normally send to the controller. In a feed-forward controller, we measure the disturbance. We do not measure the output variable, we measure the disturbance. And then that disturbance is sent to the feed-forward controller for which manipulates the actuator element of the final control element. So this is basically feed-forward control loop. So if I write down the equations for the YS, so we'll have these equations. GDS is the sensor transfer function for the load variable or disturbance variable. GFFS is the feed-forward controller. GAS is the control valve or final control element transfer function, and GPS is the process transfer functions. So we have these equations. We have to find out what will be the expression for the GFF. So YS should be at YSPS. YS should be at YSPS. So there will be, since we are our objective, the major objective, main objective of the feed forward action is to keep this Y at Y set point. So there will be no deviation on the Y in spite of the disturbances. Right? So the YS will become 0 because there will be no deviation in the YS. So this will be equals to 0. So from there we can easily calculate GAFF will be minus GDS GAS by GPS. Okay. So once we have this equation for feed forward controller, now let us see what are the elements in the feed forward controller. So if I take the GDS, GAS and GPS, normally these two are very fast, so we can take simply gain element over here, and then GPS is the process transfer function. So finally we maybe a first order with date time process. So finally we have, let's say, Kp to the power minus theta ps by tau ps plus 1. And the disturbance is transfer function is Kd to the power minus theta ds by tau ds plus 1. Okay. So both are basically FODT model or the first order with date time model. Then the GFF, which is minus GD by GP, will be this expression, which will be KFF. KFF will be KD by minus KD by KP will be KFF into tau LDS plus 1 by tau LGS plus 1 e to the power minus theta FFS. Now in this KFF is the feed forward gain. KFF is the feed forward gain. Tau LD and tau LG over here is the lead lag time constant. Tau LD is the lead time constant, tau LG is the lag time constant. And this one is the feed forward delay. Okay, feed forward delay. Normally, when we design a feed forward controller, we emphasize mainly on the feed forward gain and the lead lag time constant. That lead lag time constant basically, if you look at the response of the lead lag time constant, if your lead time constant is more than the lag time constant, if your lead time constant is more than the lag time constant, then your response will overshoot. And it will, so if it is the baseline, if I give a step change, it will jump immediately, then your response will come, right? And if tau LD is greater than tau LG, then the response, let me take the pen. Then so this is, let's say, the base, this is the baseline. So the response will be something like this. And then it will come like this. So there will be overshoot if tau LD is greater than the tau LG. Okay. So in the feed forward controller, the terms are basically your feed forward gain KFF, lead lag time constant, and the e to the and minus theta FF, feed forward time delay. If you implement, if you try to find out the effect of individual feed forward control element. So let's say for a particular process, I have simulated with a feedback control. I've simulated with a feedback control and I find the disturbance created a lot of overshoot over here. The disturbance created a lot of overshoot over here. Okay, for a simple feedback control. Now, if I use a feed forward control with only the steady state gain, that means in the feed forward loop, the GFF is nothing but the KFF, right? Which is minus KD by KP. So if I do that, then in that case, I will have this response. Then in that case, I will have this response, which is better than this one, comparing the overshoot or undershoot over here. Now, if the steady state feed forward element is augmented with the delay element, if the steady state feed forward element is augmented with the delay element, then you can see immediately the response, feed forward controller response is quite well. It takes care of the disturbances very well. So this one is basically the steady state feed forward controller with the delay. So this one KFF e to the power minus theta FFS. Okay. Now if I take only the feed forward controller without the delay, that means this one. So if I remove the delay element, then you can find the response like this. Because of this delay element over here, the response will never be satisfactory if you remove this delay element. Okay. And finally, if I take all the components over here, then we'll find that this is the best response we'll get for a disturbance using the feed forward controller. So this is in essence basically gives you an idea of how the individual element of the feed forward controller behaves on the output response. Okay. Now in these situations, there are other things we have to note. So the points we have to consider over here for the feed forward controller, one is if theta d is less than theta p. Here basically it is minus gd by gp. Now if theta d is less than theta p, what will happen in this equation? Then it will become theta f, this will become positive. So if this become positive, then we cannot implement this because it requires the future values of the disturbances. It requires the future values of the disturbances. So this cannot be implemented. But what we can do is e to the power theta ffs can be approximated, and we can add this one with the lead time element. Okay. We can add this one to the lead time element. Like e to the power theta ffs, we can write as 1 plus theta ffs, right? 1 plus theta ffs. Now we have already the tau LD as s plus 1 plus theta ffs plus 1. So that we can express in terms of tau LD plus theta ff. Also, if you have a tau p s plus 1 and tau p2 s plus 1 by tau d s plus 1, then it is physically unrealizable. Here also we can approximate using tau p1 plus tau p2 s plus 1 by tau d s plus 1. Okay. So this is basically the points to be noted when we are designing the feed forward controller. Next is the combined feed forward and feedback control. So in this case, the block diagram is pretty simple. Over here we have the feed forward controller block diagram. This is the feed forward control block diagram. So this feed forward control block diagram is augmented with the feedback control block diagram. So which basically means we have a feed forward controller. The main controller is the feed forward controller, and we are using the feedback trim to take care of the inaccuracies of the process model, measurement error, and unmeasured disturbances. So what will be the overall equations? Combined feed forward and feedback control equations. The equations will be like this. So in the set point response, you will see in the set point response, there will be no changes compared to in the feed forward as well as in the feed forward and feedback. So inclusion of the feed forward control in a feedback control strategy will not change the set point tracking behavior. Whereas for the disturbances, the transfer function will change and we'll have a feed-forward controller over here. So the feedback controller will be working in this place and the feed-forward and both feedback controller will be working for the disturbances. Now you can see over here in both the cases, your characteristics equations are remaining same. If I am using only feedback control, my characteristics equation is 1 plus GCS GPS equals to 0. When I am using feed forward and feedback control, my characteristics equation is remaining same, 1 plus GCS GPS is equal to 0, which tells us that feed forward controller will not contribute to the stability of the control system. So stability of the feedback loop is not altered by the introduction of the feed-forward control. Okay. Now, if I implement the feed-forward and feedback control in a particular process where I have estimated the process model from the actual process, then this will happen. In a feed-forward controller, there is a gain mismatch. When we estimated the process, there is a gain mismatch. So if there is a gain mismatch, so there is a process model error. Because of the process model error, if I use the only feed-forward controller, then there will be an offset. This offset basically trimmed. That's why it is called a feedback trim. This offset now is basically taken care of by the feedback controller. This feedback controller, so that offset will be made to 0. So in case of a feed-forward feedback controller, when we are implementing feed-forward and feedback controller, we have to keep in our mind the major control actions will be given by the feed-forward part. And the minor control actions will be given by the feedback controller. So the feedback controller should not be very well tuned. Then in that case, it may cause these oscillations in the process. So the feedback controller should be such that it will have only the integral actions, slightly proportional and integral. So it's a PI controller action with very slow gain value and integral actions. So that integral actions normally will take care of this reduction of offset. Okay. So this is basically in essence the feed-forward controller and feed-forward and feedback control. One of the feed-forward control strategy is also called the ratio control. So ratio control is a special type of feed-forward control. Normally in a ratio control, we maintain the ratio of two process variables as a specified value. And this ratio of the two process variables are normally the flow rates. So we maintain one flow rate in ratio of the other flow rate. So when we manipulate one flow rate, that is the manipulated variable, and when I'm putting a ratio with the other flow rate, then that is the disturbance flow rate. And the ratio R is equal to U by D is controlled rather than the individual variable. So this is basically the case where let's say this is the disturbance stream D and this is the manipulated stream U. So in this case, we measure the disturbance stream. We also measure the manipulated stream. We have a divider over here which basically calculates the ratio, which is the measured variable for this controller. This RM will go over here, and then this ratio controller will control the flow rate of the manipulated stream based on some ratio set point. Now, if we implement this one, this has got one advantage that we calculate the ratio. So always I'll get a RM as a measured variable. So what is the current ratio is normally we calculate always. That is an advantage. But the disadvantage is this divider element is in this feedback control loop. So if you have the divider element in this feedback control loop, which is then in that case, this is become a nonlinear. So the here ratio, let's say U by D. If you, so for a changes in the disturbance, so delta D by delta D by this ratio, delta R by delta, so RM by delta D is a nonlinear term. So change in the ratio with the disturbance is a nonlinear term, right? So it will give minus U by D square. So it will become a nonlinear term. Since we are putting this divider element here, we are making this loop nonlinear. Okay. So that is a disadvantage over here. So the divider element must be included in that loop. In this strategy, the divider element has to be included in this loop, which will make the process gain nonlinear. So the alternate strategy can be, we measure the disturbance variable, and then this disturbance variable is multiplied with the gain value. The gain is the ratio gain. So I multiply with the ratio gain so that I can find out what will be the set point for this, for the manipulated stream U. And we have a flow controller which basically maintain that manipulated stream U as per the ratio. Disadvantage is we do not know what is the current ratio of this disturbance stream and the manipulated stream. That we do not know, but here basically there is no nonlinear element in the process in this control loop. However, regardless of how ratio control is implemented, whether it's the method 1 or method 2, the process variable must be scaled appropriately, which basically means you have got a flow transmitter over here, you have got a flow transmitter over here. So the flow transmitter scaling has to be done properly so that they should be on the same level. And the gain setting, so unless you do that, then the gain setting will not be appropriate. So normally we put KR is equal to RD by SD by SU. Like over here, if I take one example, case of a ammonia synthesis reactor. Okay, in case of ammonia synthesis reactor, we have got two streams. One is the hydrogen, another is the nitrogen. These are the two reactants going to the ammonia synthesis reactor. And we have to feed nitrogen and hydrogen in a specified ratio. What should be the ratio of the nitrogen and hydrogen in an ammonia synthesis reactor? What should be the stoichiometric ratio?
1:3.
Huh? What should be the stoichiometric ratio? One of you please answer.
1:3.
Which one is the one?
And 2.
Nitrogen will be
N2.
1 and hydrogen will be 3.
3.
So, okay, N2 plus H2 is equal to 2NH3. So in that case, if I have this is 30 liter per minute and this is the 15 liter per minute. Okay. Obviously, this control valve, since more hydrogen I am putting it, so that this control valve will be in the larger size. So more flow I have to provide. So now it has got your transmitter span is 0 to 30 liter per minute, whereas the nitrogen transmitter span is 0 to 15 liter per minute. So what should be the gain over here? What gain I will fix? Ratio gain I will fix for this ratio station?
0.5.
Why it will be 0.5?
So U by D.
So U by D will be 0.5. So if I put 0.5 U by D, so you will get N2 and H2 in the ratio of 1:3.
No, sir,
Okay.
we actually need it differently. Like I was confused. Okay.
So that's why I'm telling. You have to put in the NH3 synthesis reactor in the ratio of 1:3. Nitrogen 1,
Yes.
hydrogen 3. So if 1:3 ratio, you have to put it over here. So what should be the gain of the ratio station that will ensure that it is always flowing in the ratio of 1:3? It will be 30. It will be 30 by 15 into 1/3. It will be 30 by 15 into 1/3, which will be 2/3. So ratio station gain will be 2/3. Okay. Hope this is clear to you. Another example of the ratio control is the wastewater neutralization. In this case, let's say in this process, we always get a acidic wastewater. We always get the acidic wastewater, and we neutralize this acidic wastewater using a NaOH solution. So we measure the pH over here, and this pH controller basically sets the gain of the ratio station. So it basically sets the gain of the ratio station, and knowing the flow rate of the acid wastewater, that we find the set point for the flow controller of on the line of the NaOH solution. So this is basically another example of ratio control where one of the stream is always as the disturbance stream. One of the stream is the disturbance stream, and that disturbance is measured. In some cases, ratio controller, till now, in this case, ratio controllers do not require any kind of dynamics, any lead lag element or so on. It's pure gain. It's a pure gain element only. But in some cases, you require also the dynamic compensations. For this example, let's say this is a multiple feed distillation column. So one of the feed, let's say because of one of the feed, because of the flow rate of this feed, the compositions of compositions of the bottom stream will change. It may be a distillation column, it may be a separation column, some absorption column or separation column. So this will basically change. Then in that case, this composition controller gives a ratio set point for the flow controller based on this flow controller over here. But the problem over here, that if we take simply the flow controller flow transmitter signal of the disturbance element and put it to and calculate the ratio set point for this flow controller, then what will happen is that for the changes in the feed over here, we are not taking care of the dynamics. Because in a separation column, if it is distillation column, the distance between these two is quite high, quite long. So the dynamics we are not taking care of. In between there may be number of stages. So the dynamics we are not taking care of. So here basically we have to compensate. So the changes in the flow has to be lagged. The changes in the flow has to be lagged or dynamically compensated before calculating the ratio gain, before calculating the ratio set point for this flow controller. So in some cases, you require a dynamic compensation. The dynamic compensation is required because this disturbance element and the manipulated disturbance variable and the manipulated variable have got different dynamics and they have a lag in between on the process. So in that cases, you require a dynamic compensation in the disturbance element. Okay. So this is basically in essence the feed-forward and ratio control. Now let me discuss the other cases which are basically override control. So in case of override control, this is a situation over here. This is a situation where I have a slurry holding tank. We have a slurry holding tank and the slurry is then pumped to some different locations. This slurry is then pumped to the different locations. Okay, maybe this slurry is sent to some fluid combustion chamber and so on. Now what will happen is when we are simply controlling the level, if we are simply controlling the level, then at some point, if the level increases, if the level decreases, then what will happen is there is the flow rate over here will decrease. The flow rate over here will decrease because this level controller will decrease the flow rate. As the level decreases, this level controller will decrease the flow rate. Now, if it decreases the flow rate, then since the slurry is flowing, the slurry will settle down. Because this, to maintain the slurry, we have to have a minimum flow rate. We have to have a minimum flow rate in the line. Otherwise, the slurry will settle down on the tube wall, on the pipeline. So in that case, the minimum flow rate has to be ensured by a flow controller, So we have got, in this case, we have got two controllers over here. One is the level controller, another is the flow controller, but we have got only one manipulated variable. So the signals from these two controllers has to go through some kind of a selector switch. This selector switch, as I told you in the last class, this selector switch can be low selector, can be high selector, can be medium selector. Normally, in case of a override control, we use either low selector switch or the high selector switch. So here in this case, we'll use the high selector switch. In this case, we'll use the high selector switch. So we'll have a flow controller. So the flow controller has a set point, which basically ensures that this flow has to be there. Now, here also level controller has a set point, and as the level falls, the this level controller output will decrease, and at some point, when it falls below the output of this one, then the high selector switch will take the output of this flow controller, not the level controller. Okay. So normally this control loop will work, but at some when during the offset period or for safety limitations, this controller will work. So this is basically override control. This is another example of the override control is the furnace tube temperature constant control. So in the furnace tube temperature constant, normally the furnace control, we measure the process fluid outlet temperature, and then we control the flow. So the temperature flow is a cascade over here. The temperature and flow controller is the cascade controller over here, which I have discussed in the furnace control in the cascade control strategy. Now, what will happen is in that case, if the firing increases because of the increases of the process fluid, because of the increases in the process fluid flow, if the firing will increase. Now, if the firing increases, the skin temperature of the tube, process tube here, or the boiler tube over here will increase. The skin temperature will increase, and it may so happen that suddenly the rise of the skin temperature will create a leakage in the furnace tube or the boiler tube, right? So to prevent that, we also measure the skin temperature of the tube. And this skin temperature of the tube will give a override control on this TCFC controller. So we use a low selector over here. And we tune the controller output in such a fashion that when this temperature increases, then this temperature controller will override the normal control strategy of TCFC cascade. Okay. Under normal operation, the controller adjusts the furnace firing rate to maintain the process tube at the set point temperature, and at higher fuel rates, excessive tube temperature can result greatly reducing the useful life of the furnace tubes, because as the process fluid increases, you will have a higher fuel rate. The LS controller reduces the firing rate that ensures that the furnace tubes are not damaged. So when the skin temperature increases, then this will be the control loop. Okay. So this is the furnace tube temperature constant control. So there are many other these things, column flooding constant control. These are basically, I'm not discussing on this. So I will give you the slides. You go through that. These are very, very interesting, like this one, cross limiting firing control. Here in that case, excess oxygen is maintained during the firing rate increases or decreases. In both cases, whether the firing rate increases or firing rate decreases, we have to maintain the excess oxygen. So this is a basically control loop where when the excess oxygen is maintained when the firing rate increases. So in this case, its firing rate increases. In another case, its firing rate decreases. So you go through that, which is basically called the cost limiting firing control. So you go through that, and if you have any problem in the next, I will give you this slide to you. And if you have any problem on understanding these schemes, then we can discuss in the next class. Okay, so we'll also have this valve position control and the mixing tank cooling control. So some of the schemes I will share with you so that you can go through that. These are pretty interesting scheme, and if you most of the cases you will understand that, you will understand this scheme easily. But if you have any problem, then I can discuss this scheme also in the next class. Okay. Okay. So if you have any questions, then I will answer. Otherwise, I will end this class.
Sir, I couldn't understand why does a divider leads to a non-linear gain?
Oh, divider lead to a non-linear gain. Okay. So the divider is calculating the ratio.
Yes,
Okay.
sir.
So ratio is U, say U is the manipulated variable, D is the disturbance variable, right?
Yes, sir.
Or the load
Yes.
variable. So R is equal to U by D.
Yes, sir.
So what will be dr by dd? How the ratio will change with the disturbance variable? Dr by dd will be minus U by D square. So the change of the disturbance with the ratio is becoming nonlinear.
So why D square?
Rate of change of disturbance with the ratio is becoming nonlinear.
Sir, why D square? U by
R is
D
equal to U by D. So dr by dd will be what?
Oh, acha, okay, yeah, okay.
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 And also, this is one aspect. Also, you put a U by D in the loop, where both U and D are variable. Then what will happen? That U by D term, is it a linear term or a non-linear term?
Most probably it will be a non-linear. Okay.
Okay, is clear?
And sir, in the feed forward case strategy, so it's almost similar to the cascade control, apart from the fact that we do not have that or the distinction between a master slave control and a master and a slave control in feed forward, but more or less the schematic looks similar. Just we have only one manipulated variable and one measurement, which is the distinguishing factor, I think, from the cascade. Otherwise, it looks almost similar, right, sir?
It's not almost similar. The thing is, in a feed-forward controller, we do not measure the control output. Whereas in
Yes,
cascade control strategy, we measure the control output.
yes.
Okay.
So there is a set point change which is allowed in cascade control, but not allowed in feed forward control.
It's not allowed, no.
Not allowed, not happening.
There is no facility for changing the set point in the feed-forward control. If a pure feed-forward control is, if you are using, because feed-forward control basically designed for negating the disturbances, not for set point tracking. It's basically for regulatory control purposes, right? So you have in a control, there are two purposes. One is the servo control purpose, another is the regulatory control purpose. So feed-forward controller is basically designed for the regulatory control purposes. And in a feed-forward control, normally you measure the disturbance variable, not your control variable. That is the major difference. Okay, clear?
Yes.
Any other questions? Okay, so in the next class, basically I will start with a new type of control strategy, which is basically based on the state space model. So in a state space, in this till now, we have used the transfer function based control strategies, which is maybe in a Laplace domain and as well as in the frequency domain. So we only used the input and output without understanding what is happening to the states of the process, internal states of the process. So from the next class onwards, we'll talk about the state space based controller. So where we use this type of controllers requires the process model, which is the state space model. So from the next class onward, I will discuss what is state space model in short, in brief, and then the controller also. Okay. Okay, so I'm ending the meeting. If there is no other questions, then I'm ending the meeting over here. I'll also try to upload the solution for your